we need to discuss something that you already know. Many traders do it and you do it yourself, but there's probably kind of no name. We've not put a name to it. So that's what we're going to do in this obviously video today. But we're going to break down why it's such a psychological barrier and why this happens to most traders. Now, there's a specific pattern that I see across the board with myself, with people that you see online, with if you've got a community or you work with traders, you will see this specific pattern happen every time someone gets close to their goals. And in this instance, obviously their trading goals. Now, this pattern is not when you're struggling. It's not when, you're in drawdown. It's not just on some random day, okay? It's almost actually never in those situations. And that's when you would probably think that it's going to be. But it's actually when people are close to a goal. So close to passing the evaluation, close to a combine, close to payout, the final day of having to make $150 on a prop firm before they get a payout. This is very common. Now, many people, traders, that consistency barrier is a big problem. And that's because this phenomenon, as I want to call it, comes into your trading. You can have weeks of discipline, weeks of discipline. In some cases in my community, absolute months. And the finish line is literally within plain sight of you. And then something kicks in and obviously it goes wrong. Now, it's not that something's wrong with you. I think it's a human thing. I think it's a psychological thing that as traders, we need to get through along the way. That's what I actually think. And I don't think it's bad luck. There are actions that make this happen. It is down to us that obviously why this happens. But I don't think it's bad luck. But why is it so consistent even though it's self-sabotaging? Now, recently I've had 1 or 2 students, in fact 3 or 4, who've got very close to payout or very close to passing evals and combines. And we've had a conversation in the morning, and in the end of that day, they've lost everything. I'll give you an example of myself. About 3 or 4 months ago, say the start of the year, I was like $300 away from 5 linked accounts, obviously getting to payout. And I took a trade in New York, and I don't trade New York, with one of my students because I was practicing something, and I actually took the trade and it just went straight against me. And then I went on tilt that day and blew all 5 accounts and a few $100s away from obviously all 5 taking absolute payout. Now, this phenomenon, psychologists probably call it like a success anxiety, like a self-sabotaging way of doing things. But in our community, we're just going to call it the finish line paradox. That's what we're going to call it. We're going to call it the finish line paradox, right? And I'm going to add that module in our background content, finish line paradox. And in today's video, I'm going to explain why this actually happens and how to actually stop what is happening to you. Now, you're going to have these psychological barriers. Again, psychologists will call it success anxiety, an identity gap between the trader and who you are actually trying to be and how you are actually trying to succeed, all right? That is an identity kind of issue. And in trading, we don't touch even the surface on understanding the identity issue that we have with trading, because not everybody can be the exactly same trader. Okay, someone in the community sent me a great video, and this gentleman's talking about you have to adapt your trading to what suits your identity. All right, it's very important. Now, when we have this gap of success, that is a belief system, etc., and things like that, and I'll cover that as we go in. Your brain is resisting this gap. Your brain is resisting for you to get where you need to get to, right? And you have this invisible question, all right? And the invisible question is, well, what happens if I pass? What happens to my identity if I pass? And you don't know this is happening in the background. We all don't know this is happening in the background. It's happening when I've got a barrier of the things that I want to do in my life. But you're questioning your identity. There's an invisible question. You don't even know what's going on. Now, most traders, you're not even conscious of this. You don't even know what's actually happening when this is happening, right? But your subconscious mindset is asking you constantly, what happens if this actually happens? What happens if I succeed? How's that going to make me feel? How's that going to affect my identity? Now, on a level surface, you just think, oh, well, it's great. Of course I want to succeed. Of course I want to get to payout. Of course I want to pass. But the subconscious mindset that you're not aware of, which is your identity, your makeup, is trying to do the opposite. Now, These behaviors they're irrational, all right? You can't really make sense of their irrational risk-taking, their rule-breaking, just one more trade, just an extra contract so I could just get it over the line. I'm nearly there. I've done all the hard work. So it's like one last bend. So let me kind of put my foot on the gas on the last bend. We'll just think of Grand Prix racing. Just imagine if a Lewis Hamilton or whoever it may be, was on the last bend and they decided to put their foot on the gas. Well, the back end's going to come out. They're going to lose that race. The same goes for trading. Just because we have that one last trade, it doesn't mean we do anything different, but we do. Because our identity is trying to close a gap. And subconsciously, we're not comfortable. Whether that's Stephen in the community, many times, whether that's Stephanie, whether that's Ty, whether that's Demetrius, whether that's Liam, whether that's Callum, whether that's Jay, many people in my community, whether that's Anthony, who had a really, really bad habit of doing this, and now he's got on top of this, do this. And I do it myself. Not as often, but sometimes I've still done it. I went on a journey where I was constantly doing that. Constantly doing that. $10 away and all of a sudden getting $500, $600 away. $100 away and all of a sudden blowing a 2K account. All right. Again, whether that's Stina, whether that's Martin in the community, whether that's Phil, whether that's Marlin, there's many, many people in the community that have all been down this route. Okay. Now, the finish line protocol, you've got to think about it. It's only the final 10% of your target. If you've got to get $3,000 and all of a sudden you're on $2,700, that's only 10%. So in theory, risk must be reduced. So let's think about reducing our risk. That would really, really help. If rather than trying to speed up, why don't we reduce that risk and take our time on that last bend? Because we know that the finish line is around the corner. This is where it's going to help you. And that is kind of like a structural intervention. Because if you're used to doing a certain thing a certain way, and then you decrease as you're getting really close, some would say increase till you get close and then decrease. I believe in that. That is a structural intervention. And that's really, really going to help you along the way. So what I want you to do and take from this video is, well, how can I help? What can I do with this? Visualization is the key to success. When I was a professional footballer, we had a psychologist come in. And when I did psychology degree, it was all about visualization. Because your brain does not know the difference between reality and what's not reality. So you need to train your brain. So visualizing exercises, okay? Spend 10 minutes after this video. And if you do it now right after this video, then it's going to work for you. If you forget about this video and do doom scrolling, there's going to be something else, all right? So spend 10 minutes right now imagining what happens when you pass these combines or these evals. Imagine what happens when you get to the payout. How is that going to feel when that payout comes into your bank account? All right? Think about that. And some people say, oh, it's all, furu kind of meditation, in the hills, spiritual stuff. Success is built on the way that you visualize things. Success is built on the way that your spirit and your identity deals with belief systems. And if you don't believe that, then you're probably not going to get anywhere anyway. Okay? It's very, very simple. So once you do the visualization and feel like what it feels like to be passed, like who do you speak to on the phone when you've done that success? Who would be happy for you when you've done that success? What do you do the moment that that happens? Okay. What changes in your life because you've reached a hurdle that you have been working towards? All right. That resistance that you feel in that exercise is what's going to get you over the line. And you're going to get rid of this. We're going to call it the finishing paradox, okay? That's what we're going to call it. You're going to get rid of that. The final line paradox, you're going to get rid of that. I want you to take that, okay? If you suffer from any of those types of things, then obviously just put a comment that you suffer from that. Just say final line paradox. That's what I want you to put in the comments. Just put final line paradox, all right? And then we'll have a discussion, all right? That's what we're going to do. So don't have this passing problem and say, well, I just can't do this, I just can't do this, all right? That's not the case. You have a belief problem, all right? You have a success belief problem. We all want things, but why do we self-sabotage? Because it's our subconscious identity failing to close the gap, all right? We all go through it. We all lack belief at times. We all lack confidence at times. We all get in our own way because that is a subconscious thing. And you don't understand why this is happening, all right? Because you suffer from a belief problem, a success belief problem. And That, my friend, is a lot easier to fix. It's a lot easier to fix. I've already told you about my personal story many, many times, going down the route, 5 years of making no money, consistently going, still self-sabotage to this day right now. Still to this day right now. And I help other people do that along the way. So if this pattern is repeating within your trading across multiple accounts, across paid accounts, across your personal accounts, remember that it's fixable. And that's a coaching conversation that you need to have. Now, if you need any of that, all right, it's not about strategy, but if you need a coaching conversation, there is a link below. Jump on that call. Let's see if we're a good fit. You're a good fit for us, and see if we can help you along the way. Now, it's not built for everybody, because not everybody is on the same journey. Not everybody is on the journey where they need that breakthrough at the moment. They may be a beginner, but there is a link below. Go and check that out. All right. So again, go and comment in below. Just put the final line paradox. All right. That'll be great. And then obviously we can jump on a call, and I'll see you on the next one.